Hi. So chances are, if you have followed me or my YouTube page or my Facebook page, that you have asked what I use for the centers for my sugar roses. Because I mentioned Model Magic and I mentioned that I make my own centers. And so I'm going to show you how I do it because it's super easy and they are so much more lightweight, easily storable, than using gum paste or fondant, and they're quicker to make too. So we're going to make my centers today. And this is what a finished one looks like. Notice it's a nice cone and it's attached to a flower wire. This is a 20 gauge wire. This one might be 18. 18 or 20 works. But I'm going to show you how I make these because everyone seems to want to know. Because everyone seems to want to know. We're going to start out with a package of Crayola Model Magic. Let me get that in focus for you. Crayola Model Magic. You can find this in any of your local craft stores or online. They do come in smaller packages too. This actually comes with 4 packs inside of it. And I use my 50% off coupon so that it's a little bit cheaper. It's about $20 for this, but if you use your coupon, much less. Let's get out our Model Magic. I'm going to open our bag. This is an 8-ounce bag. I think the ones that I use from the store are typically 4-ounce. I could be wrong, the smaller ones. I only use those for other colors. Whenever I need to make a white batch, this is what I use. The big 8-ounce packages. Now this is super soft. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can see my whole work surface. There you go. So what I do is I take this, I take this and I start to make kind of a log or a rope with it. Please don't call it sausages, guys. You know how I feel about the word sausage with sugar work. And then I'm going to roll it out as evenly as possible. We're going to make this whole log into sugar flower centers. Now, when I say roll this out, my length of my mat is 24 inches. So that's about how long I try to make one 8-ounce package. Even width, 24 inches long. If you need them smaller, you can make them smaller. It depends on how big of a rose you're going to want. I do slightly sizely roses, so that's what's best. So this is about, it's a little bit more than 1 inch thick. Which is good. I also use the same amount for my ranunculus centers when I do my wafer ranunculus. So I'm just going to take an offset palette knife. You can use anything that's sharp. I'm going to cut it right down the 12-inch mark. And then I'm going to go over to the 6-inch mark of each, which is 18 for me on this side, 6 over on this side. And then I'm going to start divvying them up, cutting in half and then thirds. Now, can you just cut like that? Sure, but you start to get distorted. And as you get farther down, it gets more and more distorted. So you're getting actually a different amount per cut and per segment, which you absolutely don't want. Now that I've done one, I will put the rest in a baggie so that we can move along. Whenever you're not using this, if you have a slightly open package, put it in an airtight container and seal it completely. Get all the air out and seal it. This stuff will keep for a long time, so long as it's not exposed to air. This is a non-toxic craft foam. If you have little kids, you may have played with it with them. It's a lot of fun. It's really supple and soft. It almost has the texture of almost of fondant, but it's lighter, so it's super light. I shouldn't have squished that like that. Oh well, we'll make it work. So in case you have a squished one like this, what you're gonna do is you're gonna start with it in your hand, and just like if you're rolling a fondant, let me zoom back in. Just like if you're making a fondant or gum paste ball, so that you don't get these little lines, you have to apply pressure. Firm pressure while you're rolling, and then roll it into a ball to start. And so we have a nice ball. No little lines around it, which is good. And then we're gonna do just like we do a teardrop with any other sugar work. Hold our hands at an angle and just on one end. Then you'll start to get a tapered point. I do like them sharp, tapered, like this. See that point? Now if you need it a little bit longer, you can keep going. If you need to reshape it a little, if it's a little off center, if it's like sticking off a little, kind of like it is there, just use your fingers gently. You don't need it to be absolutely perfect. You're looking for a nice general cone shape, but this is going to be going under tons of gum paste, so no worries. So now to let this dry so that we don't get a flat bottom or a flat side, we're going to use some bumpy foam. Yay, bumpy foam! And just set it straight up and down. Likewise, you can take some floral wire, snip off tiny little bits, and stick them straight up and down in a foam. But I do find that these will slide down enough on one of these when it's sitting upright, when they're not dry, that they'll get a flat bottom from sitting against the foam. So use your bumpy foam. This is gonna take about 24 hours, sometimes 48, depending on your atmosphere, to dry. There are instructions within the package for you to be able to pop it in the oven and dry them quicker. But the faster you dry them, the more likely you are to get cracks around this outside area. You may get cracks anyways, and that's not a bad thing. It's actually a pretty natural thing for when these are drying, for this to crack a little, because the outside's gonna dry faster than the inside. So it's going to dry and contract. It is not a fatal flaw, ever, but you will get bigger, more significant cracks if you try to force the drying by putting it in an oven. Now we're gonna assemble one that is already dry. I've got a little bit of water here, and I have my 20 gauge white floral wire, and I have my handy dandy hot glue gun. So what we are going to do is find approximately the bottom, and I do this, the center of the bottom, I do this by trying to line it up visually against something so that I can see, you know, am I in the center? I don't like to eyeball these because I'm a little fussy, but you're going to poke a little hole to start in the bottom so that you have a place and a mark where you're going to put this in. You're going to take a little bit of glue around the bottom, take your wire, roll it in the glue just a little bit, and insert it in that spot. Now before this glue dries, dab your finger in water. Don't make it damp. You need it to be kind of dripping, and carefully pounce around here to flatten it so that you don't have really rough edges along the sides. They're kind of smoothed down. This little part, I'm gonna wet my finger and pull this off. And no, I'm not burning myself. This is a high heat glue gun, but this doesn't burn me because I have water on my finger. And by the time I got to this part, it's already pretty cooled. We can go back and snip those later, or then again, maybe not. But now, this is good to go for your sugar flowers. And that is what is in the center of this beauty and of my buds. If you want a smaller bud, just make smaller centers. And again, you know, they'll determine how fat they are at the base. It's better to go a little bit bigger than smaller, because if they're too small, everything's just going to want to slide off them because it's going to be too heavy. But there you go. Lastly, how do I store these puppies? Oh, look at that. Yes, I have a gigantic box of these already made and ready to go. I mean, truly gigantic box. Once they're dry, once they're completely dry, they're perfectly fine to sit all together. You can see some of these do have some cracks on them. Like here. One of my jumbo ranunculus centers. Let's get that in focus. See, it has a crack right there. That's not a big deal because it's going to get covered and it hasn't compromised at all. See, it's not even moving. I'm trying to pull it apart. It hasn't compromised the quality of this whatsoever. So they're good to go. Store them and you're gonna have centers any old time you need them.